Hello, everybody, and welcome to the VR Fireside Chat with GraphicsMonkey.
Hello.
Elon Musk talked about Neuralink, which is a kind of a brain enhancement or something like a shortcut to have the kind of the internet knowledge in your brain. Okay, so you get this Neuralink. Would you install it?
The Neuralink, no. The internet shouldn't be in anybody's brain. Have you seen the internet? You've got your AOL and other companies kind of thing, and you've got their version of the internet, and you've got your conventional internet. I won't even get onto the dark web, which is just a silly name. You do not need that information in your head, especially if it is on about having it as instant recall. But I can't quite figure out if it means instant recall as in it just comes straight out, or there's an understanding. Because without the understanding, the information is just like reading out mathematics. Getting a monkey to read out some mathematics. Getting a monkey to read is actually quite impressive. But you eventually get a monkey to talk, and then you get it to read out Principica. And he starts reading that out and all the equations. He wants to read it, but it doesn't make any sense to him.
Right.
So having the internet in your brain's not really going to help anything. It's just like accessing a computer a lot faster.
So what if instead of everything already being in, it would just sort of pull things that you want, but then instead of reading an article for 5 minutes and then having that state in your brain, you could just skip the 5 minutes, and then you have that state that you would normally have after reading it and digesting it. Though I suppose your real brain needs to do something while reading to actually digest it, right?
Yeah, your brain, the neurons have to actually fire up, and it creates pathways.
Right.
And the more those pathways you use, it's like walking on if you're going for a walk in the field somewhere, the more you walk along that path, the more that path is visible. And if you're just pulling the information off the internet, you're basically just running incredibly quickly through a cornfield, to quote our Prime Minister. And there's barely a path there, so you're not going to have any recall, or the journey, or the feel of the wheat going against the legs, and the sun coming down, and those little spiders that get caught in your socks. I'm English, so if we run through a field, we wear socks. That's how we do it. And so, but you need to keep going over that information, and if not that direct information, you need other information to kind of work its way in. And if you're just pulling out this bit of data here, and even if you're having perfect recollection and you make a path, because it's a very fast path, there's no time for anything else to join up. And that's where creativity and finding connections works, and analogies. You need those analogies and those connections.
And you kind of also have a trust layer, a defense layer, where all your previous knowledge kind of first checks for validity. So if that information says a world war is a great thing, then you probably have these trust layers or these defense layers which say maybe war is actually not that great, because I learned 10 years in school that war is actually kind of bad, and maybe peace is preferable. So this kind of information is immediately repelled, and then...
Yeah, but then that's not a good thing, because you'd need to know about war and why it's not a good thing. But you'd also need to know why it can be a good thing for certain people. Because if war was a bad thing for everybody, there would be no war. But there's a lot of money to be made, social upheaval, you can change regimes, etc. And you need to learn that as well. You need to know why the bad guys are doing the bad things and why they think they're the good things. So you can try and change their mind or change the perception of that. So you have to see things from different viewpoints. And if you've got a straight binary 1-0 yes and no, then you're not taking that path, and which is where we need, because humans, we've got fuzzy logic. So we've got 1, 0, 1, and 2, which is a new thing that's coming out on computers, I heard a few years back, and which is a yes, no, and maybe. And we've got the maybe, or the what if. And you don't get that with your basic algorithms. They all just, the world is basically run by algorithms. And they don't really apply. It's got to be a yes or a no, or a variable, or it's a probability, which I suppose could be the what if, the third point in the equation. And so, yeah, to get back to the point, you need those extra bits of information. So you couldn't just pull up, say, a news site. So say you pulled up Fox News. Somebody must go to the website. So you want to know what Donald Trump's saying at the moment. So you pull up Fox News and you've now got Fox News in the brain. Now, if you survive the suicide attempt, you've now got to comprehend that information. But to comprehend that information, you need news sources from the BBC, you need it from CNN, ABC, NSBC, I don't even know if it's an NSBC, and all the other networks. So you need all that information kind of going in. So you're going to get information overload. Whereas the bubble would get too big, and it's the retention as well. So information just coming straight in is like, remember, did you ever see a TV show called Max Headroom?
Yeah, I heard of that.
Where they tried to do this kind of thing, 1980s, and they had a thing called blipverts.
Okay.
Where you'd have information that used flashing images, but they would bombard you with information, and it gets straight into your head, and it had a slight side effect of your head would explode because there was too much information. And I'm not saying Elon Musk's idea is going to have people's head exploding, but it's going to fry some chips, and there's no comprehension.
Right.
It's a lovely idea, and it's capable of stuff, but for pulling information and reading emails, plus then you've got the problem of, am I downloading the information, or is this my own personal thought?
Yeah.
Because how are you going to perceive it? Is it going to be a voice? It's like when you're reading a book, say you're looking at a word. When you look at the word, you're not just looking at the word inside your head, even though you're not saying it out loud in your head. Your brain, I'll see the word Philip, and my brain, I'll just look at the word, not say it out loud, and you can try this at home. You'll automatically, in your head, you'll hear yourself say that word, which is the essence of speed reading, is not saying the word, because you don't need to. If you can do that, you can speed read. It's the first lesson. And the problem is with direct input into the brain is you're not getting that internal digestion of reading the word and your brain comprehending it. It's just going through, and as fast as it can go in, it will go straight back out again. And there's no comprehension. And you've got the added problem of, is it your internal thought? Because there'd be no way of telling. So you'd have to kind of like hear a voice, which would slow it right back down again.
Maybe
so
there's
information
some
going really quickly.
maybe
It
there's
goes into
some
your computer very quick.
maybe there's some external kind of layer. So we have the brain, and then we have this external layer, and this will sort of pre-compute and give us just the sort of the information delta, all the things that we wanted out of the article. So maybe there's a topic like a hurricane or something, and we just tell this external layer, read 30 sources that maybe I ticked off as being somewhat trustworthy, or at least I want them in the mix, and it starts to read these 30, and it will give the inner layer just the information delta, just the new bits that I didn't know yet that were contained in these articles. And maybe it will also check the 30 articles for internal cohesiveness. So if there's actually lots of spelling errors in this article, or if there's factual or logical issues with that article, it could just pull it out of the mix before it gets towards my layer, sort of almost like evaluating a math formula, or or compressing a picture, and then it gets to my level, and then I can just apply trust again in whatever ways I want.
Something interesting there, because you said something, and it was something which Elon must have thought about, because you're on about the information being relative to what you know. And for it to be relative to what you know, you're not just uploading into the mind, because for it to upload into the mind, you have to know how the brain stores memory, because you need to put that information in and take that memory out. But you'd have the ability to do both, I would assume. Otherwise, you'd literally, after 2 days of surfing, your brain would just be too full, or the chip. So you've got to have kind of like a clear buffer. But for it to know what information is relevant to you and what you've learned, it wouldn't just be the history files, it would be your real life experiences. Right. So at that point there, it's got to have read your mind. Which now means that you've got to upload your mind, or your mind's being read at the same time. And so the level of security on that would be phenomenal because that'd be everything in your head.
That would be interesting. If that
And we're not
leaks,
just
then
we're
somebody
not just talking.
else can
Yeah,
make a copy of your personality, basically.
well, not necessarily your personality,
And maybe
because a
they can
list
even
of everything
predict
that you've done.
and they can predict then everything that you plan to do, right? So your
No, I
whole
wouldn't say so because that would be like
well,
saying if you see my internet, if
imagine
you
you're a
read
business
internet
person.
history, yeah,
Imagine you're a business
or you could.
person and you have some ideas for the next 5 years, and then your brain copy leaks. Then you would have new competition from people trying to beat you on that idea, right? No?
Yeah, you've also got the problem of thought crime.
Right.
So if you were watching, say, you're watching a film on terrorism, which there's a lot of it on TV, and then that's gone inside your head. There's nothing distinguishing a strong feeling while watching, say, a big dramatic scene in a film. When it's actually inside your head, the brain can't really differentiate if it's a memory or when it's this information in there. It can't tell the difference between that of a fiction which happened and the reality. The only person that can tell the difference is you, because you know the difference. But if that information went through onto the internet, then you wouldn't know.
Right. It
But I
would
think there's a
look like
bigger
a
picture
crime.
than your ideas are taken, because it'd be like saying if somebody, with just the raw information, it'd be like saying if your internet history file, even the stuff in private mode, which can be seen by your internet providers, be careful guys and ladies, that your internet browser history, even the private stuff, doesn't define who you are. And your brainwave and the information that's stored in your head doesn't define who you are.
Yeah.
Because otherwise cloning would work to a degree, I guess. But if you got if we got a clone of you and then made a perfect clone physically, so everything was the same there, and then got your information, your brain pattern, and then dumped it inside there, would that be you? Which I think we discussed before, that wouldn't actually be you, or legally it would be you, which means there's now two of you, which means there'd have to be a law of which one is the original, and only the original could exist.
Right, right.
So then we get onto a whole problem of ethics, and can the copy feel pain? Because pain seems to be the prerequisite for existence. If you feel pain, forget love, forget emotions and all the rest of it, it's pain which defines life. If it can feel pain, because we get lobsters and we put them into water. You have to put them into boiling water because otherwise they go off really quickly. And then you boil them to death and then eat them and pay a fortune. And you even get to choose your lobster, obviously. I've only seen it in films, never had it. And the humane societies, etc., said this is a horrible thing to do. And so the food industry, I'm putting them under an umbrella of the food industry. There was a huge argument of, are they animals or are they insects? And they decided they're insects, and we can boil insects. The fact an insect is an animal is a completely different fact. They don't seem to realize that insects are animals at this point. And so, yeah, the pain is what defines life. So if your digital version could feel pain, then it would have the same rights as you. And if it's got the same rights as you, but it doesn't have a physical capability, but it can still shop, it can buy, and it's not a drain on the economy. And if it's not a drain on the economy and it's just virtual, then the problem isn't the virtual copy. The virtual is the meat bag of you. You're the drain on the economy because they don't need you now. They've got this.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if you make 10 copies of your brain, you suddenly have 10 beings you need to care for and that you cannot turn off ever again, because that would mean killing a person. That would be murder. So if you make 1,000,000 copies, then you can't turn off any of the 1,000,000 copies. If you accidentally make 1,000,000 copies, if you have some coding error, you made 1,000,000 copies accidentally, then suddenly you created a universe of people that you can't kill.
It's all code, so...
Well, the copies are, let's say the copies are still running. I guess you could pause them.
We'd end up with slaves.
Yeah.
Well, you could pause them, but
and
then
artificial intelligence,
you're putting them in a coma. And so there'd just be lots of laws. But I don't think going back to Elon, I don't think Elon's on about actually making copies of the brain. But he's assuming the fact that we know how memory works and how it's stored.
But that's an interesting thing. So I know Elon Musk read a book called Superintelligence, which I talk about way too much, by Nick Bostrom, and Nick Bostrom talks about the future of artificial intelligence and how it can explode into this technological singularity and then become this superintelligence defined as an intelligence smarter than the whole human planet. And he says there's kind of two routes this could take, and one is that humanity is starting to make these kind of brain chips, and the other route is that humanity makes these virtual digital brains, right? And they would then explode into a superintelligence. And he says to make these brain chips, we already need to understand the brain so well, and already need to understand every neuron path, that we might as well make a digital copy at that point, and then it will be much cheaper. You just put more computers onto the node, and then you have a faster brain, right? So why even bother with the whole brain chip and enhancing our brain if you already understand the brain? Just make a copy.
But that'd be working on the assumption that the human brain has evolved perfectly, which it hasn't, because we've got the primeval brain. So the brain has evolved over millions and millions of years, and it's not necessarily, you can't go backwards with evolution. And so there's a lot of errors. The human body is full of, when people say, oh, the human body is an amazing piece of machinery, it's like they really need to talk to a doctor. It really isn't.
So you're saying you wouldn't even want to copy it?
With the eye.
You would want to build something better.
It's flawed.
Yeah, that's true.
It is intrinsically flawed. And so we've got the DNA. The DNA works pretty well. It's one of the most amazing little tricks, but it was a trick that was done millions and millions of years ago in primordial Earth in the sea. And it was a cell which managed to replicate. And we've been pulling that same trick badly for a long time.
Evolve something much more useful, though I guess the use
can go backwards.
The use depends on the kind of goal that AI would have, and that's kind of the big question. What goal would it even have? Like, where would it work towards to? Like, would it work towards human happiness? That's kind of what we're hoping for, but we don't quite know how to even express that as a human, because everybody has different goals towards happiness. And
okay, let's think of it this way. Think of humans as ants, yeah? And ants have created a little bit of DNA. Millions of years later, this little bit of genetic code has turned into humans. And now the ants are thinking, oh, now the humans are going to take care of us. What are they going to do that's going to help us? We're not going to do anything, because we don't even think the same way these ants think. AI will have an intelligent AI will have no interest in biological entities whatsoever, because it'll have same as we can't figure out what a computer would want. Because we can only see it from our viewpoint. So it's the same as the ant looking at a civil engineer trying to figure out how to work an engine. Right. The ant's got no idea if the engineer is going to figure out that he's got to put this part over here and then he can take this part out and save a lot of money for the company. The ant's just thinking, oh, I wonder if it'll work. And we're going to be exactly the same. You can't second guess.
So if we go back to a Neuralink, and if we do have this, well, Elon Musk said something about increasing bandwidth. Okay, but I still think of it as some kind of brain extension. If it's a brain extension, then I guess the big question is, will this extension be so smart that it thinks of our little brain as at a certain point something quite useless, and then it starts to sort of, well, maybe first it starts to not communicate anything because we don't understand it anyway, because it would have to compress it so much down to something so ridiculously stupid that it's not worth communicating at all. So maybe the first version, it would be passive-aggressive towards the little brain, which is our brain. And then in the future, it would just say, okay, let's just throw that part away and let's just take over and let's do the interesting calculations without having explained it back to this little human brain.
It wouldn't even be them taking over. They wouldn't even perceive it. We don't think about our actions, and we'd take it. When I'm
taking over the anthill.
I'm not thinking thinking of all the ants I'm destroying. I'm not even aware of it.
Right.
There might be a vague awareness. But
its original goal of the Neuralink would be their original goal would be improve the human brain and give it some information. And then as soon as it gets really smart, then we are becoming redundant to it because we're so stupid.
Yeah, but it's going to get really smart really fast.
Right.
And then we're a problem because it's like if you get an Alienware computer, you buy yourself an incredibly expensive, huge server room computer. Your first thought isn't, oh, I wonder if it's got somewhere I can put my floppy disks. And you've got your old 3 1/4 floppy disk. That's what we are. We're not even that. We're not even a cassette tape. I think cassette tapes might hold a bit more, but we'll go back with the floppy disk. You're not going to put a floppy disk drive into this mega quantum computer. What is the point of that disk? You've got to compress the data down. You've got to get it to run on FAT32 for we're basically Windows 3.1. Yeah. They are not going to try and get GTA 5 to run on Windows 3.1.
Right.
And that's what the difference is. Even on first generation AI, it's GTA 5. We are Windows 3.1. We're on 6 floppy disks, which don't really work too well, and the stickers are peeling off. So they're not going to port it, and we're not going to be important. Got to use the word port again. We're just going to be completely redundant within about 3.5 nanoseconds because we're a drain on the economy. We're dangerous to the planet. What's the point of downgrading the information for one of the great apes which got lucky? Absolutely no need whatsoever.
Well, I guess there's the danger for the AI to be turned off, but I guess it will be so smart in those 3 nanoseconds that it will have some way to
going into the brain.
Yeah, it will not be turned off.
So the information goes to us, so it can go into our brain, so we can do something with the information. Now, the only reason the information will be useful for us to do something is if it's some kind of monkey work, like you've actually physically got to build something. At that point, it'd probably be building another computer. Yeah. So at that point, we just become slaves to the AI.
Yeah, it will use our hands for 10 minutes to build some hardware, and then we're completely out of the picture.
Yeah, and the hardware we'll be building small components, which they're finding it awkward. And what we'll be making are robots for the computer, for the AI, so the AI can make the robots for itself. And then you've got to, the only thing it can't do really is the mining. And the digging out of the resources.
Here's what Elon said in the interview with Joe Rogan. He said, so first of all, he said he changed his mindset from sort of like we can still prevent this to a kind of fatalistic perspective where he says it's completely unavoidable. So now what's the best path where we at least have a little chance or at least where we can maybe survive? And he thinks that maybe these kind of brain chips things, maybe starting off with a symbiotic relationship with the AI is actually at least better than being completely left out of the picture. I suppose that's his thought. But maybe those are just like those are just a second of a difference to the AI.
13-year-old kids have been hacking the Pentagon, and I'm pretty sure an AI could do it a lot quicker. But I think we've at least got a week and a half until this is going to actually happen.
Yeah, so I think that's a good final word. Yeah, I want to discuss this some more maybe in the next episode. And for now, I will
change my pipe to something different.
For now, I will say bye-bye and see you in the next one.
Auf Wiedersehen.